Okay, hey again, everybody. So this chapter is Social Media 2. It is chapter 10 in your Stu Kent textbook, and it finishes up our discussion of social media for this week. So today, in this lecture, we're going to focus on the different types of social media advertising that are available to marketers and that you would be expected to know when you're in the field of marketing. So your participation form for this week was posted a little bit earlier than everything else. So I was happy to see that a lot of you were engaging with it. So I know that social media is very, it's just part of your daily lives. So I knew that you all would have a little bit of feedback to share. But anyway, so it's worth 5 points. And I want to know which brands you follow on social media that you really love. You can give examples of what those brands do that make them stand out, why you find value or why you engage with the brand. And then tell me which platforms you engage with that brand most on. So remember, when I say platforms, I am referring to things like Facebook, TikTok, your Snapchat, your Twitter, Pinterest if you're on Pinterest, Instagram, even LinkedIn or YouTube. So if any of those are your favorites, tell me about them in the participation forum. I am just anxious to hear from you guys. So let's just go ahead and move on and move through the different platforms and what types of advertising are available to you. So the first platform we're going to focus on today is Facebook. And a lot of students, when we talk face-to-face, really think that Facebook is kind of like for old people. I hear that a lot. So usage is down for younger people with Facebook, but they have a very large user base. 2.91 billion monthly active users worldwide. So it's been around quite a while, and it's very established, and they have a lot of data on everyone who's using it. And if you've ever used Facebook, or if you have Facebook, you could probably I guess agree with the fact that engagement is really pretty high with this platform. It kind of sucks you in. You don't realize how much time that you're spending on it. I think it's kind of similar to that with TikTok. Maybe it's just like TikTok for old people. I don't know. But why should you use Facebook to reach your target audience? So let me give you a couple little bits of data that I think are pretty interesting. So their ad revenue for Q4 of 2021, probably their most comprehensive data that we have available right now since it's midsummer, it was $32,639 million. That's a lot of money for advertising. Now, it doesn't touch our Google advertising dollars, but for one social media platform, that's pretty huge. So a Facebook user clicks on 12 ads on average every month. So it's definitely not just about what your friends are posting. You are interacting with advertising, which is very important if you're a company that's trying to reach that target audience, right? So there's a high engagement there, and they own a couple different platforms. So it's been a few years, but they've purchased Instagram and WhatsApp. So now Instagram is sort of following suit with their advertising platform. So it took them a minute to get on board with that. They have a major ability to target because they have years and years of data on you. So I think I was kind of late to the game, but I started a Facebook account, I believe, in 2009. So most of you were much younger back then. So they've been collecting some data on me, purchase patterns, what my likes, what my interests are, what things I slow down on in the feed. They've been collecting a lot of data on me for quite some time. So it makes it a lot easier for them to target, and they know that their advertising algorithm is really working. So this platform is really good for content consumption and high engagement. And they're known for buying up their competition. So Instagram is very photo content heavy, as is Facebook, and so they purchased the word on the street is that they purchased Instagram to eliminate their competition. So it's really good at getting people to consume different types of content. You can like things, you can comment, you can share, you can click through. So different ways that you can engage on this platform. And if you are working for a company, it's a good guide to make sure if you have multiple Facebook pages, that each of those pages should have a unique focus. Each of those pages should align with the organization's main strategies or main priorities. And so, for example, at one point, I think Southeastern's trying to streamline things a little bit, but when I first came back to working here in 2014, every department was allowed to have their own Facebook page, and so it got pretty fragmented. We would post things, we would share things from other pages, yes, but we were posting our own stuff. We were all struggling to build an audience, and so I think it is much more effective when we have one or just a few pages that align with our strategic priorities in an organization. So keep in mind, Facebook doesn't really prioritize unpaid company content. So you can have a company Facebook page, but it's going to be really difficult for you to end up in the right person's feed unless you are paying to sponsor or promote a post. So they're actually prioritizing your friends' posts over business posts. And if you're an advertiser, they'll be sure that you get your message in front of the target audience, but they're just really trying to encourage you to spend money to advertise to get to your target customer. So in a Facebook study, a series of photo-only ads outperformed other ad formats in driving unique traffic. So this ad type that we have here as an example is an image ad type. It's pretty simple, but it's outperforming their other ad formats. So that's quite interesting. Less work, less effort, and more results. So this is for when you need to create an ad pretty quickly. There's nothing wrong with just doing an image type ad. And this is an example of a carousel ad. So Teeks by Gabrielli was just trying to show you the different, features of this shoe. So they were able to do that in a few photos. This is an example of a video ad for Facebook, a slideshow ad, and then, of course, a collection. So this is a good one by Adidas. I just went back really quick to look at the carousel ad with you guys because I wanted to tell you that it allows you to showcase up to 10 images or 10 videos within one single ad, each with its own link. So something like this might be appropriate or really beneficial for Roussels, our client for this semester. And you can choose to let Facebook optimize the order of the carousel images. Wait, I'm not even on carousel, am I? I'm on video. Whoops. Sorry about that. So you can choose to let Facebook determine the order of the carousel images based on each carousel image performance. So if people are clicking through one more than another, they may optimize that first one, the one that's getting the most click-throughs should be the first one that you're seeing. But if you're using the format to tell a sequential story like the one that's in this example, you want to make sure that you're opting out of the automatic optimization feature. So these are not things that you're really going to retain as I'm teaching you right now, but it's just good to know. That way when you're going into the workplace, you'll know the different options that you have and the limitations that you might want to put in place to make it work. And then a collection for a Facebook ad might also be really good for our client because they have a lot of related products. So they could do like a whole home scent collection and they could feature all of the different similar products that way, or they could show all engagement rings. So just something to think about. Okay, so when you're considering the placement of your ad on Facebook, most people just choose to have it show up in the person's news feed, but an ad can appear in stories. They implemented that, I think it was like 2017, so it's been around quite a while now. In Messenger, you can actually have Messenger ads. sidebar ads, those are only available on the desktop. So older people that are using Facebook are probably looking at it from the desktop because they can't see as well on mobile because of the size of their screen. But that's when your ads are just, as you scroll through your feed on your desktop, you can see those appear on the right hand side usually. So that just follows the news feed all the way down when you scroll. Not optimized for mobile, but anyway. So Facebook's audience data is super powerful, and you can see here how many pieces of data can be used to target the audience. So I just took this from my Facebook advertising account and just screenshotted it. So you can define exactly the age of your target audience, that person's gender, their interests, if there's anything. So when I did a campaign in the past, I just wanted engaged people because we were selling a wedding venue. So I wanted engaged people that were 18 to 25. I think I actually had it a little bit older. That lived within Tangipahoa, Livingston, St. Tammany, and say St. Helena or East Baton Rouge parishes. So it just kind of depended on how I wanted to target them. But I wanted you to see how you could create an audience here with this button, and then you can create several different audiences to set up your advertising to target those specific people. And if you're on Facebook, just keep in mind, some postings in Marketplace are actually ads. They aren't just people that are on Facebook selling something. There's sometimes companies that are selling things through Marketplace because they know that the engagement and the response rate on Marketplace is pretty huge. So, moving on. Okay, so this is just a screenshot of my account and how we could outline the different types of audiences. I have them labeled here, not so great, but anyway, wedding reception prospects, wedding expo vendors. We had an event going on, and then you can see that there was an estimated audience size that Facebook showed. So this is the number of people who my ad could reach through their feed, because we just did a news feed ad in this case. So this goes back to impressions, not necessarily click-throughs, but these are the people that would have seen the ad whether or not they had interacted with it. So next, let's talk about Instagram. Instagram is actually owned and operated by Facebook, or by Meta. Facebook actually purchased them in 2012 for $1 billion, which was huge at the time. And as I said earlier, Facebook saw Instagram as a threat to their business because Facebook's core business is all about photo uploads. So it was seen as highly competitive. So they scooped them up, and then some of their advertising model mimics the Facebook advertising model. So I thought this was a little interesting fact to give you. 39% of Facebook's net ad revenue in the United States comes from Instagram. So that was huge. It was probably smart for them to buy Instagram. But it's specifically designed for a mobile audience. Typically a younger demographic is on Instagram, more millennials. It's all about engaging image content and some video content. But they were a little cautious with advertising at first, and now that they've been purchased by Facebook, they're basically on the same platform. So if you are on Instagram, I encourage you to pause the video right now, stop and go to the app, and you'll notice that about every fourth thing in your feed is an ad. So it'll be a friend's post, friend's post, friend's post, ad. Friends post, friends post, friends post, ad. It's pretty crazy. And actually in some of my previous classes, some students have been targeted more heavily than others, and they have like one ad for every 2 posts in their feed. And they didn't even realize how often they were seeing those ads pop up. It's pretty crazy. So if you haven't put anything in our participation forum yet, you might want to take a look at what's going on your Instagram feed and let us know in the comments. So like I said, Instagram and Facebook have a very similar advertising model, and you really need to connect them together so that they can work together. So their advertising is image-based, and you can advertise in Instagram via stories as well. So another thing that's really popular or made popular by Instagram is influencer marketing. So this is when we leverage the audience of a popular person that has a ton of followers, and then that person features a product or a service in their feed in exchange for a commission or a kickback on the sales of whatever it is that they're advertising for. I'm sure you guys know what that is, but I just wanted to make sure that we were being clear. Okay, so let's talk about Twitter and what makes Twitter unique. I am trying to get into Twitter. I have like my ups and downs with Twitter. At one point I had to kind of like get off of Twitter because it was just too much. Every morning I would wake up to different tweets, no matter how you felt about them. I'm not trying to get political, but Donald Trump was constantly putting out content on Twitter. And so you would just see the fighting from both sides in the comments. It was pretty crazy. And now that Elon Musk owns Twitter, that is also, I'm interested to see how it all shakes out. But what makes Twitter powerful and unique is that it's really great in broadcasting information to people. People that love Twitter are really, really active on the app. They're great. It's great for customers to ask questions regarding like customer service issues. I used to work with a company called Basecamp, similar to Slack, if you've ever heard of that. And it's just an online platform that helps you stay organized in the workplace and organizes your communications. Anyway, so you could send a message to Basecamp via Twitter, and they were so responsive, and it was just an instant thing, whereas if I called their helpline, I didn't get the same response rate. So on Twitter, they were able to talk to me about whatever customer service issues I was having and resolve them right away. It was pretty awesome. And it was public so that people could see like any frequently asked questions that came through their customer service via their Twitter account. Pretty cool. So the good thing about Twitter, or the unique thing about Twitter, is you're really forced to be concise. You have 280 characters, and that is it. And so for those of you that struggle with being concise in your writing, and I'm a talker, so I do struggle in talking to make things concise. I know, sorry. But in your writing, it's really kind of good if you're trying to keep something very simple. Go to Twitter and see how how you can describe something in 280 characters or less. So you can use that whenever you're putting together a pay-per-click ad in your future. It just helps you to keep things short. Twitter doesn't make any distinction between a personal profile and a corporate profile. So that's something interesting to know. And a lot of people think that a blue check really means something, that they're prioritizing those blue checks over anybody else, but it just means that that's a verified account if you have a blue check by it. So Twitter doesn't differentiate between verified and unverified accounts in the way that they show information to users. So for advertisers, you can target based on buyer intent. And Twitter uses their partner networks to grab data to use for advertising purposes. So it's a little bit different than our other platforms. So you only pay when customers or when people you are targeting are following your account, or if they retweet, or if they like, reply, or click on any of your tweets. So it's kind of similar in pay-per-click advertising in the fact that you're only paying if there's some sort of click-through or there's some sort of interaction. They don't require a minimum amount to spend in order to advertise, so that's really good. And so what that means is even small businesses can afford to advertise on Twitter. Okay, so you can see here that they're pretty simple and straightforward advertising methods. They offer the option of promoting a tweet or promoting an account. from an advertising perspective. So you can still target based on geography, gender, interest, what type of device people are using. And then you can see that the objective of your campaign, you can select the objective of your campaign. So if you're trying to just grow awareness, you want people to see as many tweets as possible, you can choose that method, and it'll kind of walk you through the best practices in advertising on Twitter. Also, keep in mind that the primary purpose of a hashtag on Twitter is to make tweets searchable, and it's to organize all of the tweets. So I always think it's funny when people come up with these extremely long, unique tweets, and I'll see people do this on Facebook. It doesn't quite work the same way. So if you're using a hashtag that is popular or used quite often, then it's going to bring you to the same place. It's going to organize your information in that same place. Just something to keep in mind. I know I talked a little bit about buyer intent in the way that you can use a partner network to advertise on Twitter, but also you can choose to target people based on the similarity to other followers. So I think that's pretty interesting. Like you can make groups of similar types of customers, or you can target them based on those similarities. So Pinterest is a social media platform that people often forget about. So what makes it unique is that it's all about the visuals. It is very engaging, and it's mostly females that are using Pinterest. Not that men don't use Pinterest. My dad has used Pinterest to figure out how to build stuff. So there's information out there for everybody, but it is primarily female with higher income levels. So that's really great for e-commerce to be able to use Pinterest to target people. So it's such a mixed bag when I ask classes. I never really know if you all are familiar with Pinterest, or, you know, sometimes it's everybody loves Pinterest, and another time I get blank stares and nobody knows anything about it. But I use it to organize like decorating ideas that I have for different rooms of my house, or if I'm getting a haircut soon, I'll pin a bunch of haircuts into the same file. But it is very visually engaging, and it's super easy to click through to a website and make a purchase there. So it's great for e-commerce. So just keep that in mind for our client for this semester. So with Pinterest, you can advertise through a few different methods. You can have promoted pins, you can do promoted video pins, one-tap promoted carousels, or promoted app pins. For our client, you could curate pieces of jewelry or different pieces of content directly from their website. So you could pin content from experts in that field, like jewelry experts. It doesn't necessarily have to all come straight from Roussel's, but it would be what Roussel's is putting out there on their Pinterest accounts. So it would need to be somewhat related to their field or what they're selling. You could include graduation party tips, for example, wedding planning tips for Roussel's Pinterest. So this related information that can get people that are people that are interested in those topics actually familiar with Roussel's by sharing maybe other people's valuable content that's out there. And they might want to have a pin it button on their website if if they start using Pinterest a lot. So that's something that you wouldn't want to do for every company. So let's go to North Oaks Health Systems example. They really haven't ventured out into using Pinterest because it just doesn't make sense for their type of organization or for their industry. But anything that's e-commerce, it would make a lot of sense for them to try Pinterest, especially if they're trying to target that female audience. So YouTube is extremely popular and extremely engaging, but it's actually the least social of all of our social media platforms. So there are over 2 billion users on YouTube. And because it's just video, it's just not very social. You can watch a video and you can comment. That's about it. And the YouTube algorithm will actually treat personal YouTube videos and organizations or branded YouTube videos the same. So there are plenty of ways to advertise on YouTube. You can have a display ad, you can have an overlay ad, you can have an ad that you can skip through after a couple of seconds, or you can have an ad that you must watch throughout. You can have a bumper ad or these little sponsored cards. Overlay ads, just keep that in mind that they only show up on the desktop format, so they're not going to show up on the YouTube app. But it's great to create some content to support your business. So for YouTube, think about putting together content that's really valuable instead of an obvious video advertising your business. No one is going to YouTube just to watch your ad, unless it's like an amazing Super Bowl ad or something like that. So you just want to keep that in mind. It goes back to our inbound marketing techniques, creating value, making something educational, entertaining, informational. A DIY video would work great, but if Roussel's was just to have a commercial up there, it's really not going to engage their customer base or whoever they're trying to get their information to. So think about how you're providing some value to that prospective customer instead of promoting your business. So the cost of a YouTube ad really depends on a few different factors. They're looking at the amount of time that your ad is watched, the way that you target your audience, and your campaign objective. So on average, YouTube advertising costs are between 10 cents to 30 cents per view or per action with your video, with an average daily budget of $10. So just something to keep in mind as a frame of reference. If you're spending $10 for advertising, it's going to cost you about 10 to 30 cents per view. So don't forget about LinkedIn, especially for you all who are probably in that place where you're going to start looking for a job in the next year or so. Some of you maybe in the next few months. So you really should build a LinkedIn presence. You should use a professional photo or a headshot, and you should start to network with people who are in your classes, people that you're interacting with right now, because you just never know how that could help you in the future. So LinkedIn is a great social media platform, and it's just awesome for professional networking, and it's really the only thing out there where business to business can target people based on their job duties, their job title, or just their professional profile. So it's awesome for recruiting purposes. Actually, every job that I've gotten in the last 10, 15 years or so, I could see that, well, maybe not 15 years, but maybe in the last decade, I could see where people were viewing my LinkedIn profile, and it was almost like a reflection of my resume, everything that was on there. So I think it really helps for people to see how you interact professionally online in a social media environment before they hire you as well. You can position yourself as a thought leader. You can post, say, a blog post for your business there if you're in a certain industry, and really show that you know what you're talking about. So it's great for business to business advertising and marketing. You can find people in different organizations with the right title. They may be the gatekeeper or the person who makes purchase decisions for that organization. So don't forget about LinkedIn. Video. Okay, sorry, my mouse just gets stuck from time to time. Okay, so as an advertiser using LinkedIn, you have a few different things. You have sponsored content. You can put together dynamic ads that appear on the sidebars. You can direct message people with sponsored messaging. It's called InMail, which is pretty cool, although it does kind of look like an ad, so you have to be careful about how genuine that feels, right? Because we're just trying to show just be real in our interactions online. And then there's a form built into LinkedIn called the lead generation form that helps us reach out to prospects. So if you're working in your future in a business to business environment, do not forget about using LinkedIn. Okay, so this one is for your age group, most likely. So Snapchat, what makes Snapchat unique is that they have a really young user base and they have a very high engagement. I kind of compare what my kids are 18 and 14. So I kind of compare their interaction with Snapchat to my email. So my email is to their Snapchat. Just constantly they're trying to get through their day and their snaps and trying to respond to everyone. It's not really quality responses necessarily. It's just that they're making sure that they get to every single person and don't leave anyone unread. So if you're operating the same way, I would say that there's high engagement on Snapchat. Snap offers great video editing techniques, so that everybody's having a really unique experience when they receive snaps or when companies engage with you through Snapchat. So I'm not really sure how you guys feel about this. I'd love to hear it in the participation forum. You know, is Snapchat your favorite, or do you really interact with advertisers through Snap a lot, or do you tend to ignore those? I would really like to know how you're using it. But it's purposefully less intuitive. So it's not so easy to use. So if you are a person like me, a Gen Xer, you're probably not really comfortable with Snapchat. I actually use it more to get my kids to respond to me. So I'll send them stuff. But it is really fun and unique, just a completely different social media experience. So it was one of the first platforms to offer filters and different graphic elements to your photos and videos, really before any other platform did it. So that's what made Snapchat really unique. And here is an example of how you can advertise on Snapchat. So you can have a Snap ad, which is just a video between stories or between snaps as long as 10 seconds, but it can be standalone or it can be part of a collection. And then you can have swipe ups or sponsored lenses like the one that you see here. So it was really one of the first platforms to offer something like this, and now you see it through a few different social media platforms. But anyway, so this is pretty cool. So this company has kind of fooled us about this movie into using that filter and really promoting the movie for them or engaging with the brand. So keep in mind, if you were to use something like swipe ups for Roussels, if you were going to recommend that to our client, you want to keep in mind that this has people go to their external website. So you want it to be consistent and you want it to make sense for what the client is doing. So our newest platform is, of course, TikTok. So what makes TikTok really unique is it's growing super fast, you guys. It really blew up in the second quarter of 2020 because of COVID, because people were at home. And just a fun fact, consumer spending on TikTok in quarter 4 of 2021 was $824 million. So as you can see in this little chart, there has been exponential growth in TikTok users over the last, since 2018. So that is crazy growth over just a few years. So, but 824 million. So people who are advertising on TikTok are actually getting people to interact with their brand and spend money. So that's pretty crazy. So 50% of TikTok's global audience is a little bit younger. So it skews under 34 years old, and 32% are aged between 10 and 19. So that's a little bit younger audience. However, I have seen an uptick lately in older folks. It's so easy to share content on TikTok that, you can introduce somebody to the TikTok app that maybe never, used it before, just because you're sending it to somebody who's older, and then they're going to go ahead and create an account. So they have a ton of active users in the United States, 138 million, and 1.2 billion globally. So that is really, really huge for something that's not that hasn't been around all that long. But remember, TikTok started in China, so it is a global brand. It's not just for people in the US. This is really crazy. 90% of users visit the app more than once a day. So you don't just download the TikTok app and not go back to it. When you download it, it is not one of those apps that you forget about. You're using that app. And then people that are sharing information from, or sharing posts from TikTok, are encouraging you to use your app even more. So I get texts all the time with some crazy TikTok, and then it kind of starts me back into the app. I really love this app. So they spend an average of 52 minutes on the app per day. That's huge. And so if we broke that data down, it would be interesting to see how old those people are that are using it 52 minutes per day versus the younger crowd who might be using it way more, especially during the summer. I am just watching my kids just sit through a TikTok feed, just an endless feed all day long. Their algorithm is insanely good. So once you tell it what you like, you're just going to see more and more of that. It's really creating a bubble. So I want you guys thinking about how we can recommend to our client that they would use TikTok. How can they engage the younger prospective customer who might be in the market to get engaged or might be looking for their graduation ring? So I wanted to show you guys some of the different types of ads that are available on TikTok. I'm going to go ahead and mute it though while I talk through.
Can you come?
Okay, so you guys can watch through some of that. So if you're going through your For You page, they're going to blend ads into your feed, and you can see that those are sponsored. And then often there's a Shop Now button or a call to action button at the bottom that pops up mid-ad. So that's an in-feed video ad. Next is a branded hashtag challenge. This is when TikTok creators create content related to a hashtag, and that can be used for sponsored posts. Brand takeovers are really short videos. This is an example of one that takes over your For You page for an entire day. It's very expensive, but it's very effective. It has a huge reach. Top view ads are very similar to brand takeovers, but on a smaller scale. So it's a full screen video right when you open your For You page. It's just not as expensive as a brand takeover. And then branded effects, as you probably could guess, are like stickers, filters, or effects attached to a brand. So they're similar to sponsored lenses on a Snapchat ad that users can use just on a limited basis. Okay, so what content works for social media? So that brings us through all of the different types of advertising available on our social media platforms. So as marketers, we then need to figure out what type of content is going to connect with our target audience. So how do we connect and provide value for our audience rather than being pushy or salesy? So we can produce something called adjacent content. Oops, lost my mouse again. So we can produce something called adjacent content. So this is content that has to do with your business, but it isn't necessarily selling your business. So in producing adjacent content, think about people that might be interested in what you're selling, and they might be interested in these other topics as well that might be closely related to your brand or closely related to what you're selling. So it's kind of similar to the blog post assignment when you guys were thinking about something interesting that might add value, that might be related to what Roussels is selling, but not necessarily a direct sell of Roussels products, right? So that would be called adjacent content. So you can share content that's relevant to your business or something involving common interest to your audience. So if you're a clothing retailer, you could post about up and coming like beauty trends or news from a major designer. So that would be another example of adjacent content. So you can post about tips and tricks. So this helps you as a marketer to add value to the conversation by sharing some content that would make your customers' lives easier. So if you give them tips and tricks that help them use your products or services, that's even better. But it shouldn't be salesy, just as a guide. So non-promotional company information would be things like if your company won an award or if your company is highlighting their employee of the month. You could post about a new service project that your company might be taking on. So those are just good examples of things that aren't really promoting the company outright, but keep your interest, keep people informed, especially if they're really engaged with your business. They might be interested to know that type of news that your company is getting involved in. And then you want to use social media to respond to people online. Not every update has to stem from some original ideas of yours. You can bounce off the ideas of things that other people are already posting, but you can get some ideas from the responses, from the comments of things that people have interacted with previously. So social media relies on these conversations happening online, so don't be afraid to be a part of those conversations. And then I put jokes here. Well, let's talk about job openings. So of course that would be another one. That's kind of like a non-promotional company information. Working for us is great and why. But people are always looking for jobs online, and that's very shareable information when you are in the working world. Okay, so moving on to jokes. So just keep in mind that posting things that are funny might not be funny to everyone. So it really depends on the type of company that you're working for, that you're marketing for, and whether or not humor is going to work in your social media. Okay, so how else can you make a really strong impact on social media? Please consider your branding. So if you are working in a marketing department, or if you're working in a marketing capacity now, or if you've taken previous marketing classes, especially like the foundations of marketing design that I teach, by the way, it's Marketing 310. If you have taken that class before, or if you're taking it in the future, it's all about branding for the company's image. And so that doesn't change. When you're on social media, you need to have a consistent brand. So if you go to work for any place, especially a small business, and they don't have their branding guidelines outlined, I would start as a new person in the marketing department. I would start by asking questions like, what are our branding guidelines? What fonts are we using? And when do we use certain fonts? And how many fonts do we have in our mix? And how can we streamline those? And how can we make sure our fonts are very readable? So what are our brand colors? What are our secondary and our primary brand colors? What are our PMS, Pantone Matching System colors? So what kind of imagery are we allowed to use? So all of those types of questions when you're building a brand guideline are very important to extend to social media. So your social media presence should be very consistent with the way that your website looks, with the way that any other advertising that might be produced looks, using the same colors, using the same fonts, using the same voice and the tone and the way that you speak to your customers. It's all about your brand personality. You can't have one very formal traditional brand on your website and then use tons of humor on social media. It may work temporarily to gain some attention. However, it's diluting the brand. And so we want to be as consistent as possible throughout whatever channels we're using to reach our customers. So along those lines, keep in mind that you need to know your audience. Be on brand, but make sure that your messaging is relevant to the environment in which you're working. So your audience are the social media platform that you're using or you're engaging on, you might slightly change your tone depending on who you're talking to, but you still want to be consistent with those brand guidelines. But it's really an opportunity for you to show a human face behind the brand on your social media. And lastly, you want to integrate your campaigns. So all of your campaigns across your social profiles will really help to solidify your brand and amplify your efforts if they're consistent. So what I mean by that is what you post on Facebook should not be completely different from what you are engaging with on TikTok. They should somehow mimic each other, and it's really difficult to put together a cohesive branding strategy on social media because you're targeting different audiences, different personalities, and you're trying to show the brand's personality as well. But just go back to those branding guidelines. Use your coworkers. Hopefully you're not a one-person show working in a marketing department. And if you are, you should ask other people if your brand is consistent. So you can really you can take a look at some brands that are on multiple social media channels and kind of analyze whether or not they're being consistent. That'll help you to keep that in mind. Well, this is just a little recap of what I just said, but you need to get to know your brand and understand what you stand for. What is the voice of the brand? What's the personality? And what is the unique value proposition? What are you selling that makes you different from your competition? And then that should always be behind your messaging. What is the thing that makes you guys unique as an organization? And then what are those branding elements? What are our colors? What does our logo look like? How do we use it on social media? What kind of fonts are we using if we're using fonts in any imagery or video? So the ways that you can get people to engage with your brand and really like what you're putting out there is to just be present. Take a real, genuine human approach to everything that you're putting out there. Don't be pushy. Don't be salesy. You can be a little bit off topic. Just that makes for some interesting conversations to come up. But just a little off topic, not way off topic. And make sure that whatever you're putting out there is truly valuable to whoever you are targeting. Be inclusive in all of the language that you use. We don't want to offend any groups. We want to be polite, and we want to be aware, and we want to be present and active on our social media. So don't create a social media account that you're not going to monitor and watch like a hawk, and that you're not going to devote time to responding to, because there is one way to offend people is by ignoring them. Okay, so wrapping it up, here's just a few ideas on how to reach your social media goals. So you could always create a daily, monthly, or weekly series using a certain hashtag. So if there's something that you really want to establish as your brand's hashtag, that's a great way to do that. People love contests. They love contests. They love giveaways. Those things are always really, really shareable. So you could do something like that. The foundation that I work with North Oaks, last semester, they did something where they had a bunch of new restaurants in town donate $100 gift cards, and then they had a contest. One person was going to win 12 gift cards, so it was one place a month where you could go out to eat and you would have $100. And that was pretty great to create some awareness of what we were trying to do for North Oaks. And we were supporting the restaurants as well. And so they were kind of helping us to promote that. So that's just something that I do on the side, working with the foundation. So you can also host something like an Ask Me Anything, which would have been something great for Dr. Rob Peltier to do, which I think he might have done on one of the North Oaks channels recently, since he was the COVID subject matter expert. So if you have somebody who's an expert that works with your organization, you can do an AMA or you can host a live, and that's a great way to get some interaction in real time. You could do a social media takeover, or share some content that your followers that had shared. People love when brands do that for them. So you can create a partnership with another brand. If you're in an industry where it would be helpful for someone to better understand your product, you could do something like a how-to video. Or if you are, say you're a contractor who builds houses, you might want to do a series of DIY videos for things that can help you fix up your house or make some small improvements that have a wow factor, stuff like that. So you can do a live where you share some insider information or conduct a live interview online. Or if there is a trending topic that's out there, you can jump on that. And we have a pretty good example of that built in here. Let's see. Okay, so I don't know if you guys remember, I think it was 2013, Beyonce performed for the halftime show, and it was for the Super Bowl, and it was held in New Orleans in our Superdome. And right after that performance, all of the lights went out in the Superdome. It went completely pitch black with all of those people, center stage, just a huge thing. And Oreo had, this is such a great idea, and they were so responsive, and they posted this on their Twitter. Power out, no problem. And it's a very simple graphic done by one of their graphic designers that says, you can still dunk in the dark. So they took advantage of a trending topic because people were trying to figure out, everyone was watching the Super Bowl, and people were trying to figure out what was happening and why were there no lights. So only in New Orleans, I swear. Anyway, so you can have people tag a friend. That always works to make things a little bit more viral. And then people love taking polls, so that helps to increase engagement as well. And then you can just share your company's milestones. So there's a couple of examples on this page too. So this Airbnb poll was great about people staying in the Bay Area. What's your must-see list? And then Sprout Social did something to promote the fact that they got voted one of the top places to work. So those are some really good examples of how you can incorporate different ideas to reach your social media goals and increase the shareability of the things that you're posting online. So I know we focused on a lot this week with regard to social media. Next week, you're going to have a quiz on our social media discussions. But what I'm going to do for you is have you watch a video of a social media expert. It's a video that's provided by Stu Kent, but it's very valuable information. And so for any of you that are looking to go into marketing, once you graduate, I would suggest that you take some screenshots, you take some really good notes on this video. It is like an open book quiz. It's really just for you to have some repetition with the information. I would prefer you get repetition, and through having a quiz than to just surprise you with crazy quiz questions. I think it's easier for you to learn that information that way. So this expert's really good. It's about a 30-minute video. That's not for this week. This week you're just going to focus on your assignments, watching the videos in the participation forum. But anyway, for next week, you'll have one more quiz, and that'll be on our social media. So that is all I have for you today. Hopefully this inspired you to create some great content for maybe a job that you have now, maybe a little side hustle that you have going on, or if you are working part-time or full-time, just to create some really engaging content for our client too, which is also the point for this class. So as always, let me know if you have any questions, and see you next week. Bye.